Welcome back, all my fight fans. Today I'm going to be giving you guys my predictions for UFC 326 coming up this Saturday, March 7th in Las Vegas, Nevada. I'm very excited for this fight card. We have the BMF title back on the line. That's very exciting. We have a rematch that has been long overdue. I've been waiting for this rematch for so many years now, so I can't wait to break down Holloway versus Oliveira. But as always, I'll go through every single fight on the card, the early prelims, and the main card. So if you guys want to skip around, there will be timestamps down below in the description. And if you guys like this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share with all your friends to help boost this channel and the algorithm. And with that all out of the way, let's get into the predictions. Kicking us off on the early prelims, we have a light heavyweight bout, this one between Luke Fernandez and Rodolfo Bellato. Luke Fernandez has a record of 6-0 with 5 wins by knockout, 4 of those coming in the first round, and Rodolfo Bellato has a record of 12-3-1 with 7 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, and 8 coming in the first round. Now, normally, I would go with the guy who's been in the UFC a bit longer, who has more fights on his record, more experience, more knockouts, more finishes. Normally, I would go with Rodolfo Bellato, but if you guys watched Luke Fernandez on his Dana White Contender Series fight, he got a knockout in the first round, not only in the first round, but in the first 15 seconds. This guy looks like an absolute killer. Thus, I'm going to take him by first round knockout in this one. Moving on, we have a featherweight bout, this one between Jiang Yong Lee and Gaston Bolanos. I apologize for butchering names. It's kind of the thing I do best on this channel is butcher people's names, so I apologize to both fighters there. But this featherweight bout, on one hand, we have Jiang Yong Lee, who has a record of 11-3, 4 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, 5 of those coming in the first round, and Gaston has a record of 8-5 with 6 wins coming by knockout and 5 of those coming in the first round. Now, to be completely honest, I am not the most familiar with either one of these fighters, Gaston being one of the rare Peruvian fighters on the roster. I think I've seen him fight once or twice. I did just see him lose to another guy named Lee, and that guy only had 1 E in his last name, so this guy has 2 E's in his last name, Lee. I'm going to take this guy just based off of his last name. That's not the only reason why. I do like this South Korean fighter. They call him the Korean Tiger, and if you've seen his last couple fights, this guy could be a phenom in the division. He's got a lot of talent. If he can put things together, he could be a problem for the featherweight division. I think he's going to get it done in this one. I'm going to take him to edge out Gaston Bolanos by decision. Moving on, we have a light heavyweight bout. This one between Rafael Tobias and Dr. Nurgozahai. I hope that's somewhat right. I apologize if I have any viewers from Kazakhstan watching, but this one should be a really fun fight. Rafael Tobias, on one hand, has a record of 14-1 with 5 wins coming by knockout, 6 by submission, and 8 of those coming in the first round. Whereas Dr. Nurgozahai has a record of 10-2, 6 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and 7 of those coming in the first round. For me, I'm going with Rafael Tobias in this one, or Rafael Tobias. I think he's going to get this one done quickly. His last fight that he had, I believe it was in the Dana White Contender Series, he got a first-round rear naked choke. And if you look at this guy's record, I mean, already being 14-1 at 22 years old, this guy is 3 years younger than me. It's kind of mind-blowing, but this guy's 3 years younger than me. He's already got 15 fights, and he's looking like a devastating prospect for this division. And he's a well-rounded fighter. He can get you submitted on the ground, or he can knock you out on the feet. So I think this guy is definitely winning this fight. I'm going to take him by first-round submission, but he could get this done by knockout as well. Moving on from that, we have our early prelim headliner. This one is a flyweight bout between Sumadarji and Jesse Aguilar. Sumadarji has a record of 18-7 with 13 wins by knockout. That is an incredible knockout rate for the flyweight division, and 11 of those coming in the first round, whereas Jesus Aguilar, I always call him Jesse, but Jesus Aguilar has a record of 12-3 with 1 win by knockout, 7 by submission, and 4 coming in the first round. So this should be a pretty fun fight. I think this is the first fight on this card that actually does something pretty big for the division. I think whoever wins this fight probably gets a ranked opponent after this. I am not super confident in Jesus or Jesus or whatever you want to call him, Aguilar. I'm not the most confident in his game. That when I see him fight, I just don't see that same I don't know, that same will to win that I see from some other fighters in this division. I think that he lacks that drive a little bit, and I feel like Sumodarji's a little bit quicker. He's got a little bit of more of that power in his hands, especially for flyweight. I mean, having that many knockouts is crazy for this division, and I just feel like he's got more X factors with him. He's got a little bit more ways that he can win the fight. So I'm going to take him to win this one, although I think this is a very evenly matched fight. You cannot overlook Aguilar. He's a very crafty fighter, very intelligent when he's in there, and he can get things done on the ground. But I think Sumodarji's going to win this one, and I think he's going to win it by decision, like I said, because I think this is a very good matchup. I think the matchmakers did a great job on this one. So that concludes our early prelims. Let's move on now to the regular prelims. And kicking off our regular prelims, we have a flyweight bout again, and this one between Cody Durden, and I apologize for butchering this name. This one's the toughest one of the day. Niem Jargal Tumen Dembarel. Tumen Dembarel. I'm going to have to pay attention during the broadcast on how John Anik pronounces that name because I am way off with that one. So I apologize if anybody's from Mongolia laughing their ass off at my pronunciation there, but I'm honestly going to take that guy to win because Niam Jargal has a record of 9-1 with 2 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, and 4 coming in the first round, whereas Cody Durden, on the other hand, has more of a spotty record of 9-1 with 6 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, and 9 coming in the first round. So he can definitely get the fight done, and he can get it done early, but I'm just not as confident in Cody Durden. I've watched this guy lose a few times in this division, and I'm more high on the prospect from Mongolia here. I think that he has a better chance of getting this done. He's also 27 years old, whereas Cody is 34 years old, so I always side with the younger fighter when the age gap is that big. 7 years is quite a bit of an age gap, so I'm taking the Mongolian prospect, and I'm going to take him by second round KO in this one. I feel like he can get it done against somebody like Cody Durden. Moving on, we have a featherweight bout, this one between Ricky Turquoise and Alberto Montez. Ricky Turquios, or however you want to pronounce his name, is 13-5 with 3 wins by knockout and 1 by submission. And then you have Alberto Montez, who has a record of 11-1, 1 win by knockout, 6 by submission, and 3 coming in the first round. Now, you don't want to count out Ricky, because Ricky, he's kind of one of those fighters where you don't know which fight he's going to win, which fight he's going to lose, and sometimes he shows out, sometimes he puts on great performances, other times he drops fights where he probably should have won. I think he just recently lost to that 20-year-old, 21-year-old kid who we'll talk about here in a second, but I'm not very confident on this guy. Whereas on the other hand, you have Montez, who has an 11-1 record, one of those rare fighters from Venezuela, and if you look at his past 4 wins, all of them have come from choke, and all of them have come from either anaconda. There was 3 anaconda chokes and 1 Darce choke. So this guy is a specialist. You know, usually when you see 4 or 5 rear naked chokes, you go, okay, that's a technique that you learn on your second day of jiu-jitsu class. Basically, anybody knows how to do a rear naked choke if they're fighting in the UFC. But mastering an anaconda choke, mastering the Darce choke, that takes a lot more time. And this guy, you can tell, is a specialist when it comes to jiu-jitsu. So I'm going to take him by anaconda choke in... He could get it done in the first round, to be honest. But I'm going to take him by the second round just because this is his first fight under the big UFC lights, taking on a guy who's been in the UFC for a little bit now. And I think it might take him a little bit time to figure his opponent out, maybe get the second round submission. But I'm definitely taking it by anaconda choke because this guy seems to be a master with it. So be on the lookout for that. If you want to take a specific method for your bets on Saturday night, I would go by Montez anaconda choke. There's probably got to be good odds on that, but I can see him getting that done for sure. If you watch his last 4 wins, very, very impressive submission artist. So moving on from that, we have a middleweight bout, this one between Dante Johnson and Cody Brundage. Dante Johnson, ignore the goofy hair there, but he has an impressive record of 7-0 with 6 wins by knockout and 6 coming in the first round. Very, very impressive record. Whereas Cody Brundage, on the other hand, 11-8, almost a 50-50 record there. 6 wins by knockout, 3 by submission, 7 coming in the first round. So when this guy wants to fight, when he wants to put the pressure on, he is a very good fighter. You know, Cody Brundage, you watch the way that he boxes with his hands. He is smooth, but he tends to take his foot off the gas quite a bit during his fights. He doesn't have that killer instinct. In fact, I think it's lacking from him entirely. His last 3 fights, I believe, were losses. Maybe even his last 4 fights. I can't remember, but at least the last 3 were losses. So if he loses this fight, I think the UFC should just cut him at this point. I mean, he's a nice guy. He's a tough fighter, but I just don't think he belongs on the UFC roster. He doesn't have that killer instinct. He doesn't want to win badly enough, and you can see that in his fights. And I think he's going to go out there and get starched by Dante Johnson. Johnson just recently got a ninja choke over Dumas, so you might expect me to take him by submission in this one, but if you look at his complete record, this guy's a knockout machine. 6 knockouts, almost all of them in the first round. This guy's an incredible finisher. I'm taking him by knockout in the first round. Good luck, Cody Brundage. If you stick around after this fight, good on you, but I feel like you're going to take a loss here and probably get cut from the UFC. I think it's best for the sport. The middleweight division is getting more stacked by the day. We get more and more prospects. We don't have room for guys like Cody who don't have that killer instinct. So moving on, we get to the prelim headliner. This between an absolute veteran in Cody Garbrandt taking on Xiao Long at bantamweight. Cody Garbrandt has a record of 14-7 with 11 wins by knockout, 8 coming in the first round. And Xiao Long has a record of 27-10 with 5 wins by knockout, 9 by submission, and 5 coming in the first round. Another thing to note with Long is he has 37 fights and he's only 27 years old. So that is an incredible record for being that age. I think, guys like Sean Strickland, like veterans like that who fight quite often, who are very active. Even Sean Strickland only has like around 37 fights. So this kid has so many fights for his age. He's already got so much experience. And if you've seen him fight already, he's got a lot of attributes. He's fast, he's snappy, he's got some power in his hands. And I think this is the perfect matchup for him going against Cody Garbrandt, because if he can overcome a striker like Cody, he's going to do good things in the bantamweight division. He might be one of the top prospects in a year or two. So Cody, on the other hand, I think we all know that this guy's not going to challenge for a belt anytime soon. Every time he gets like somewhat close, he gets shut back down, and he just doesn't have the dynamic tool set to win at bantamweight anymore. Cody Garbrandt cannot beat an Umar Nurmagomedov, cannot beat a Piotr Jan. He cannot beat a Merab Dvalishvili at this point in his career. It's not going to happen. So I would just like to see him go out with an amazing KO and probably retire. I know that he probably has a couple more fights left in him. He's probably going to fight a few more times. But I feel like if he goes out there, gets a big knockout, he should probably think of hanging up the gloves, because you're probably going to go out in a worse way than that. If you can get the knockout, take that and go out on that, because he is not going to be competing in the top 5 or for the belt anytime in the future. He's kind of shut out at this division at this point. Unless he decides to move up, maybe try some things at featherweight. He does still have a lot of power in his hands. I just don't see it happening for him. So hopefully he can go out there and get the first round KO, but my mind's telling me that this Xiao Long guy, it's his time now. And with that much experience at 27 years old, him being the younger fighter, I'm going to side with him. I'm going to side with him by decision. I know it's boring, but it is a 3-round fight. And you have a very dangerous opponent in Cody Garbrandt standing across from you who can knock you out at any time in the fight, as we've seen before in the past. So Xiao Long has to be very technical in this fight. He has to be very patient. He has to pick his shots wisely, but I think he has the experience to do that, and I see him winning this one by decision. So that wraps up the prelims. Let's move on now to the main card. Kicking off our main card, we have a middleweight bout, this one between the number 13th ranked Gregory Rodrigues and the number 15th ranked Bruno Ferreira. Gregory Rodrigues has a record of 18-6 with 11 wins coming by knockout and 3 by submission, 8 in the first round. Bruno Ferreira, on the other hand, has a record of 15-2, 9 wins by knockout, 5 by submission, and 11 coming in the first round. This fight, boy, am I excited for this one. I am probably most excited for this fight, only second to our main event. Even the co-main event. I actually prefer this middleweight bout to our co-main event, but our co-main event could possibly be a boring fight. It's in the potential. I don't think it's going to be a boring fight at all, but it is possible. This fight, there is no possibility that this is boring. You look at these guys' records, they have so many first round finishes. Both guys are prolific finishers. Both guys can get it done either on the ground or the feet, although if it goes to the ground, I would probably favor Bruno Ferreira. But on the feet, man, there's so much power between these two guys. Somebody's going out in the first round. So I don't know which way to call this one. If there's any fight that I would not bet on this card, it's this one, because it's really a coin flip fight. It's completely 50-50 in my mind. The only thing that might edge this fight one way or another is the size difference. You have Gregory Rodrigues, who stands at 6'3", and you have Bruno Ferreira, who stands at 5'10". So quite a difference there in height. When it's 5 inches like that, that can play a factor into the fight. And But I don't know, because Bruno Ferreira, I think, is a little bit more technical with his hands. Gregory Rodriguez is a fantastic boxer, but sometimes he gets a little bit sloppy with staying in the pocket and keeping his chin up high. So I don't know with this one, man. I'm just so excited to watch it play out. I hope it's a 3-round war. I hope it becomes fight of the night, but I do not see this one moving past the first round. I think both guys just have it in their mind where they're going forward, and there's no reverse button on their modes, man. They go forward and there's no reverse gear. So I think one of these guys is going to destroy the other one, obviously. I'm going to side with Gregory Rodriguez, like I said, just because of the size factor, but I'm more of a fan of Bruno Ferreira. Honestly, I like his game a little bit more, and I hope he wins this one. So I don't know. I'm just so excited for this one. I hope it's either a war or a glorious first-round knockout, but my official prediction, we're going to go with Gregory Rodriguez, first-round KO. Next up, we have a lightweight bout, this one between Drew Dober and Michael Johnson. Drew Dober, on one hand, has a record of 28-15, 16 wins coming by knockout, 5 by submission, and 10 in the first round. Michael Johnson has a record of 25-19, with 10 wins by knockout, 2 by submission, and 8 coming in the first round. Two old men going at it in this one. I was surprised when I checked the ages that Drew Dober is already 37 years old. Oh my God. Time flies fast, man. I remember when that kid was still in his 20s, and now he's already 37. He's already a veteran of the lightweight division. And Michael Johnson, still remember when he was a younger fighter too, and now he's 39 years old. And it's just the battle of the lightweight goats, I guess. Not goats. They're not. Neither one of these guys are the greatest of all time in the division, but they're classic veterans who have been in so many wars, so many fun fights. Michael Johnson back in the day knocking out Dustin Poirier. I don't know who remembers that, but that was quite an impressive performance. Drew Dober knocking out Bobby Green a few years ago. In this one, I got to take Drew Dober. I like him more. I feel like he has more power in his hands. I feel like he's not more technical with his boxing, but he has a more complete striking game all around when you factor in the kicks and stuff like that. But Michael Johnson is a phenomenal boxer, maybe the best boxer in this division, second to guys like Topuria and stuff like that who are at the upper echelon, but Michael Johnson, phenomenal boxer. Definitely could get this done, but I think if he does, he would have to squeak out a decision, because Drew Dober, we know how he fights against fighters of African descent. He's a racially motivated fighter, and he's probably going to go out there and put it on Michael Johnson, I think. I think he's going to get a first-round KO. At least that's what I'm hoping for. These guys are a little bit older, so maybe the fight takes a little bit more time to heat up. But I think Drew Dober is going to go out there racially motivated, and I think he's going to get the first-round KO over Michael Johnson. So that's my official prediction for that fight. Moving on, we have a bantamweight bout. This one between the number 13th ranked Rob Font and Raul Rosas Jr. Rob Font has a record of 22-9 with 9 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, and 9 coming in the first round. Rosas Jr., on the other hand, has a record of 11-1 with 2 wins by knockout, 6 by submission, and 6 coming in the first round. And my God, if there's a fight on this card that I do not care about in the slightest, it's this one. This should have been on, forget the prelims, this should have been on the early prelims. This fight doesn't matter at all. Whoever wins this fight, it does nothing for the division. You have a 38-year-old Rob Font taking on a 21-year-old Rosas Jr. First of all, neither one of these guys are going to be fighting for the belt anytime in the next couple years, so why is this fight on the main card? I don't know. Rob Font, I'm hoping he gets this done because he's a classy veteran. The other kid, super ugly and annoying, and I don't like him, and I want him to lose. So I'm cheering for Rob Font in this one. I hope he gets it done by decision, but honestly, this fight means nothing to me. It's an absolutely nothing burger of a fight. I wish this was thrown on the early prelim so I could skip it, but here's a free bathroom break on the main card if you guys want. This fight, honestly, it's so stupid. I don't know why this is on the main card. You guys let me know down below in the comments if you guys actually like this fight, if you think it's good for the division, if you're high on this prospect, this 21-year-old kid. I think there's just so many holes in his game. He's probably going to drop this fight to a 38-year-old Rob Font. That's just my opinion, but we'll see how it plays out. Maybe he'll shock the world and get a big upset, get a big victory in the first round. But unless he gets something big and flashy done in this fight, I think it's going to be a boring fight, and I think it means nothing for the division. So let's move on now to the co-main event, a fight that means a lot more for the division, a middleweight bout between the number 7th ranked Caio Baralho and the number 8th ranked Reiner de Ritter. Cal Barallo has a record of 17-2 with 5 wins by knockout, 4 by submission, and 6 coming in the first round, whereas Reiner de Ridder has that record of 21-3 now after dropping that last fight to Brendan Allen, and he has 5 wins by knockout, 13 by submission, and 11 coming in the first round. So this guy can submit you early. He can get it done fast. And before that Brendan Allen loss, his only his 2 losses before that were to one guy, and that was a triple weight world champion, one of the best fighters on the planet. He's overlooked because he fights in ONE FC, but Anatoly Malikin is a devastating fighter, and that was the only guy to beat Reiner de Ridder up until Brendan Allen, which that one really surprised me. I thought Reiner de Ridder was going to have a nice, tough fight with Fluffy Hernandez. Maybe it'd be a close fight, but I thought de Ridder has the better jiu-jitsu. He's probably going to get that one done. Then he drops that opponent. That fight falls through. He takes Brendan Allen, who I think is a lesser fighter than Fluffy Hernandez. We've seen that already. And drops that fight, which was very odd because he had such a hot 2025. Maybe he fought too much last year. I don't know. Maybe 4 fights was too much in the year for him. But he had so many impressive victories, and then he drops a fight to Brendan Allen. So I feel like he has to come back in this one and get a tremendous victory over a guy like Cal Barallo and propel himself into the top 5 of the division. Now let's break down the X's and the O's of this fight a little bit more. Cal Barallo, how does he win this fight? Well, I think he has a superior fight IQ. He's one of the smartest fighters in the entire sport. Forget the division, but in the entire sport, I think he's got one of the highest fight IQs. Maybe he doesn't always have the attributes, the speed, the flashy kicks and stuff like that to kind of back up that IQ, but he does fight extremely smart when he fights. His last loss to Imanov, also a very, very crafty, very intelligent fighter. Imanov just seems to have a little bit more pop, a little bit more power at his punches, and that's what gave him the edge in that fight. In this fight, he's not fighting such a crafty striker. Reiner de Ridder is a good striker, but I wouldn't say he's a great striker. He's very, very good in the clinch. In fact, he might be one of the greatest clinch strikers in the UFC right now, but that's not enough to complete an entire striking game. From distance, Reiner de Ridder can get pieced up. That's usually where he's weakest. So if Cal Barallo wants to win this fight, he keeps it at distance, he keeps it in that kickboxing range, and he just tunes up Reiner de Ridder for 3 rounds and gets an easy victory. Reiner de Ridder, on the other hand, has to close the distance. He is a little bit taller than Cal, and I think he has a little bit more strength just in his grip strength and body strength. If he gets in the clinch, he's going to be able to manhandle Cal a little bit. Not completely. Cal is still a very strong fighter, but Reiner de Ridder, just about anybody he gets in the clinch with, he's able to kind of throw around and lean on and put some weight on them. So if it gets into the clinch, Cal needs to be cautious of those knees. Reiner de Ridder has some of the most beautiful body knees in the entire sport. You watch what he did to Bo Nickel, undefeated prospect, hits him with a body knee in the first round, and he goes down. And I love Bo Nickel, but that was a beautiful performance by RDR. So in this one, if he can get in close, if he can land those knees on Cal, if he can work his body that way, maybe land some elbows, cut up his face a little bit, he definitely could get this done on the feet. But I think for Reiner de Ridder, the best strategy is going to be taking Cal Barallo down and finding a submission. You saw how many submissions he had there, how many he's gotten in the first round. Reiner de Ridder is one of the most talented jiu-jitsu fighters in the entire sport. Not just in the UFC, but in the entire sport of MMA. This guy is supremely talented. I feel like he hasn't shown it as much as he did in ONE FC here in the UFC, but hopefully with more fights we see him get guys to the ground a little bit more and strangle them like he's done with so many people in the past. So on one hand, you have the fight IQ of Cal, you have his kickboxing, his striking from a distance. That's going to give him the edge in this fight. De Ridder, his phenomenal clinch game and his ground game that is absolutely unmatched in this division. I think there are only a handful of guys who can truly hang on the ground with De Ridder. It's going to be guys like Chimaev. It's going to be guys possibly like Fluffy Hernandez, those high-end jiu-jitsu fighters. Cal Barallo, great on the ground, but not quite on that level. I just don't feel like he's as a dynamic fighter on the ground. So he's got to keep it off of the ground and stay on the feet, in my opinion. And I think he's going to get this done, actually. I think he's got the fight IQ to get this done. He's got good attributes in the striking. He's just got to shut out Reiner de Ridder and keep him off of his legs and keep him out of the clinch. I'm also cheering for de Ridder. I like both of these fighters. I want both of them to challenge for the belt at some point in the future. Part of me feels like de Ridder's a little bit more tested. He has a little bit more experience, and maybe he's got a little bit more drive right now. He's 35 years old. The next 2 years are kind of his last chance to get that UFC gold, so he might be more motivated coming into this fight, especially coming off a loss that I don't think he should have taken. I think if he runs that fight back with Brendan Allen, I think he could beat him. It's just the gas tank with de Ridder sometimes that's a question. But luckily, this isn't a 5-round fight, so that does favor de Ridder. Honestly, I'm going back and forth on this one so much. I don't know who to call it for. I'm probably going to be switching my decision up until the moment of the fight, up until they walk in there. But for now, I'm going to go with Cal. I think he's such a smart fighter, the way he runs his camp at the Fighting Nerds gym. I think that this guy, he had that setback with Imanov, but I think Imanov might actually win the belt this year. It's possible. Chimaev is a tough opponent, but that guy's supremely talented, and if they get that rematch ran back, those could be the two best fighters in the division right now. So I'm looking at their last losses, and I feel like Imanov is a much higher caliber opponent than Brendan Allen is, so I'm going to take Cal based off of that. But this is a very close fight. For me, it's kind of a coin toss fight. It's almost 50-50 in my eyes. There's obviously areas where one fighter succeeds more than the other. It's not as equal as the earlier middleweight fight that we predicted, the Rodriguez versus Ferreira fight. Those two have the same exact attributes all the way down the list. But this one, there's some differences in the two fighting styles. So we'll see how it plays out. But I'm going to go with Cal Barallo winning this one by decision. And finally, in our main event, we have the long overdue rematch, 11 years in the making, between Max Holloway and Charles Oliveira. Max Holloway, on one hand, has a record of 27-8 with 12 wins by knockout and 2 coming by submission. Charles Oliveira has a record of 36-11, 10 wins by knockout and 22 wins by submission. So, going into predicting this one, there's a lot to talk about. Obviously, there's the first fight, but I feel like we can almost write that first fight off. Those two fighters were so damn young when they first fought each other. They were in their early 20s. And the fight ended in the first round via esophagus injury for Charles Oliveira. I don't know if you guys have watched that fight, but it was a very weird ending. You didn't get to see too much of them in there. And I just feel like 11 years later, these guys have had such long careers since then. They've completely changed themselves as fighters. So really analyzing the first fight doesn't make any sense. They have fought before, but it's almost like they haven't. They're completely new fighters going into the second fight. And you don't really have to be an expert to know who has the advantages where in this fight. Obviously, if it stays on the feet, it's going to favor Holloway. We just saw him beat up Dustin Poirier, and this guy doesn't usually get tuned up on the feet, no matter who he fights. His closest fights have been with Volkanovski. Well, I guess you can say he got tuned up by Topuria, but Topuria is a unicorn. We could put him over here because he's separate. He knocked out both of these guys with complete ease. So Topuria we put to the side. But Max Holloway, you watch him fight Volkanovski, one of the greatest fighters of all time, probably the featherweight GOAT, and he has 3 very, very close fights with him. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, he has tuned people up before on the feet. He has pretty good Muay Thai, but he has a horrible chin. Every time he gets touched, he's like wobbling, falling down, pulling guard, throwing his legs up in the air. It's not a good look, and this is why I haven't been a fan of Charles Oliveira his entire career, because I watched him drop so many fights in the UFC. I think I watched him lose like 7 or 8 times in the UFC. I've watched him get knocked down over and over again, fall on his back, throw his legs up in the air, and just look for a submission in desperation. It's not a good look on a fighter, and it's not something that I like. I like watching dominance. I like watching Khabib, John Jones, Islam Makhachev. I like seeing that dominance in there. Those are my favorite fighters. So I've never been a fan of Charles Oliveira, so I have no stakes in this fight really one way or the other. I do like Max Holloway, not my favorite fighter on the planet, but I do like the guy. He's got a very fun personality. I love watching his clips, the way he jokes around with Daniel Cormier. Just so funny. So I like Holloway more, but as fighters, I'm kind of impartial on this one. They're both kind of whatever fighters to me. I do find Max Holloway's style a lot more entertaining, but I feel like skill-wise, they're pretty equal. So if it stays on the feet, if it goes 5 rounds, Max Holloway has the boxing to tune up Charles Oliveira and to make him a bloody mess by the end of it. Does he have the power to knock Charles Oliveira out? I think so. Max Holloway does have knockouts in his career. He's got 12 wins by knockout, but he's not really a knockout guy. You know, most of his prolific wins have been wins that he's gotten from decision, just beating the other guy down and winning via volume. Max Holloway, if he's anything, is a volume fighter. He has the most strikes thrown in UFC history, and I think he has that record by like 1,000 strikes. The next guy isn't really close to him. Joshua Van might overtake that record at some point in the future. I'm hoping for that. That kid's really, really fun and throws like 8 significant strikes per minute. Maybe he'll surpass Max Holloway's record one day. But for now, Max Holloway sits among the top fighters at the very peak of the heap when it comes to volume fighters. So if this fight stays on the feet and it goes the full 5 rounds, it's going to be a very, very rough night for Charles Oliveira. He's not going to probably get knocked out right away. Like I said, I think Max Holloway does have the power to do that. I think Charles Oliveira's chin is weak enough for Max Holloway to knock him out, but I feel like Max Holloway almost likes the feeling of keeping the guy on his feet, beating him up, and just embarrassing him with so much volume and just overwhelming the other guy. I feel like that's how Max Holloway likes to get his victories. So that's how I assume he's going to go out there and game plan for this one. Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, we know how he's going to win. He's probably going to win either in the clinch, finding an elbow, finding a knee, finding a tricky shot up against the cage. Max Holloway isn't usually pushed up against the cage because there's so much volume coming from his way that it's very hard to press that guy backwards. Usually he's the one coming forwards. So if Charles Oliveira is able to do that, if he's able to land consequential shots, push Max Holloway up against the cage, he's going to be able to find knees, elbows, hooks, stuff like that, and he might be able to knock Max Holloway out. It is definitely doable. We've seen his chin cracked already from Ilia Topuria. Once you've been knocked out once, it gets a lot easier to get knocked out again. So possibly that can happen, but I think the best way for Charles Oliveira to win, and you don't have to be Chael Sonnen or some MMA expert to know this, but if Charles Oliveira takes Max Holloway to the ground, it's going to be a problem for Max Holloway. This doesn't mean that Max Holloway is bad on the ground. In fact, we rarely see him on the ground because he has such great takedown defense, but when it comes to a purely jiu-jitsu match, you're not going to beat Charles Oliveira unless you're Islam Makhachev or some sort of supreme high-level wrestler, because there's no other black belt in this division that for jiu-jitsu is going to be able to go head-to-head with Charles Oliveira. He is that good. He's probably the best jiu-jitsu player in the history of the UFC. I still don't like putting him over guys like Damian Maia, who like made jiu-jitsu his entire game, but he has the most submissions in UFC history. He's gotten them over some pretty prolific names, and I feel like you have to give him that acclamation of, you know, he is the greatest jiu-jitsu fighter in UFC history. So that's how he's going to win. He's going to get it in the clinch. He's going to find those tricky shots, get it to the ground, and find a submission. Possibly he can get knocked down and find a submission, but I know Max Holloway is too smart to do that. If Max Holloway gets a knockdown, he's going to be beckoning him back up to his feet, asking for that clean knockout shot. There's no way Max Holloway is going to be jumping into the guard of Charles Oliveira. We've seen enough from Oliveira now. I think not just Max Holloway, but basically anybody in 155 is going to refrain from jumping into the guard of Oliveira. So I think that's his best shot at victory. Oliveira is getting it in the clinch and somehow dragging Max to the ground. And Max Holloway just has to keep his feet moving and use that superior volume. I really don't think this is too tough of a fight for him on the feet. He's beaten much more difficult guys on the feet. Just look at his last fight against Poirier. Poirier is a much more difficult striker to face than Charles Oliveira, and Max Holloway almost made that fight look easy. It was a lot more one-sided than the previous fights, especially the second fight between Poirier and Holloway. That fight was dead even, back and forth, dead even. The last fight between Holloway and Poirier, you could argue that Holloway won 4, possibly even 5 of those rounds. So this guy's striking is just on a different level. I don't see him running into too many problems with Charles. Like I said, unless it gets backed up against the cage, Max is very rarely there, but that's where Oliveira does his best work, with those sneaky hooks, with the elbows over the top, and those knees up the middle. So we'll see how it plays out. Obviously, like I've said before, not the hugest fan of either one of these guys, so I'm pretty impartial, but looking at this objectively, I feel like Max Holloway has more experience in there. He's been in more championship fights. He's had more experience with high-level guys, in my opinion, and He's made very close fights with Volkanovski, who's one of, if not the greatest fighter in UFC history. I've seen some people make that case. It's a case you can make. So him having 3 very close fights with that guy, and those were kind of fights maybe even just a little bit before his prime. I think Max Holloway is just hitting his prime right now. And Charles Oliveira, on the other hand, I feel like is kind of nearing the end of his prime. So it might just be a timing thing for me that I think Max Holloway is better equipped to win this fight right now. I feel like the fights start on the feet, so the guy with the advantage on the feet probably has the advantage overall. So I'm going to take Max Holloway to win this one by decision. I know there's a lot of Charles Oliveira fans out there that are, clamoring and getting mad about that, and maybe lighting up my comment section. If you do, go ahead. But I know there's a lot of Charles Oliveira fans out there that are ride or die for this guy. He's their favorite fighter of all time. He's got some amazing fans, some of the best fans in not just the UFC, but in sports history. Charles Oliveira has some die-hard fans, but I don't see him getting this one done. That's just my opinion. If you guys disagree with me, let me know down below in the comments. Let me know why I'm wrong, why you guys think Charles Oliveira is going to destroy Max Holloway and all that fun stuff. Leave me your predictions for all the other fights on the card if you guys want to. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with all your friends to help boost this channel and the algorithm. Thank you guys so much for watching. As always, it means the absolute world to me. Enjoy the fights this weekend, and I will catch you guys in the breakdown. Peace.